Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Declan's Autism Journey podcast. I'm always excited everyone is coming back and tuning in. I'm so excited today. I have my first non-family member guest, Nancy.
Yay!
Nancy, it's so good to see
Hello,
you.
beautiful lady.
I love that you're here today. So Nancy is our special gift from Dr. Melillo. She is the RPM specialist there. She changed our world, not only with Declan, but for myself as a mom. She opened up so many things to us, Nancy. I mean, it's totally indescribable, as you know. I'm totally going to cry during this podcast episode. But
Crying since 2016.
But I'm so grateful you're here. And the goal of this podcast is always to help other moms not feel alone, to give new ideas. We try a lot of new things, and but really the goal is to make people not feel alone in their journey, because it's isolating, it's scary, and it's crazy to think that I'm sitting here today with you and we're having this conversation. I mean, it's mind-blowing. When I step back, that's a year and a half ago that we met, probably less.
Yeah.
It was June 2023, and Deck was 4.
Yeah.
And I just remember Dr. M, because it was only our second intensive with him. We had been there in April of 2023. I don't think you were starting there yet. Does that sound right?
Yeah, actually, it was April 2023 where we did start. That was my month of beginning, and I think it was towards the end.
Okay, so we must have just missed you, which I probably couldn't have taken it had we met you in our first week. I probably would have lost my mind.
It's a lot to take in.
It's so much to take in. And I want to talk about what that looks like. But first, I want to say thank you for being here. I'm so grateful to you. You know how much I love and adore you. And so do you want to just give yourself a little intro to our viewers?
Sure. The RPM intro, because we could, I'm not a young girl. So my RPM intro, I was introduced to RPM in 2016. And because of my child. Now, if we talk about that could be a whole conversation. But I think it's kind of important to say that, Alex, my son, who is now 25 and at the time was 16, when we found RPM. And we were called in about this family out in Staten Island. And they said, oh, my son, he's so insightful. He knows all these things. He knows all about our family, and we didn't think he did, and all of this. So I'm saying, wait a minute, that's all good. But how do you know? How do you know?
Right.
And they're like, well, he's kind of slapping on this letterboard. And that was the beginning. I said, I'm coming. Like it was the middle of the night, right? I mean, and I went, and these dear friends of mine that told me about him, it was their cousin, and he was just extraordinary. And I don't know what happened to me at that moment, but I instantly, and he did not speak a word, not mom. And when I had a moment to get him alone, and I said to him, what about my boy? What about my boy? Can he do this? I was crying. He was kind of giggling at me and he said, his name was Nick. And he said to me, he didn't verbalize. He spelled for me, Nancy, he's going to amaze you. Give him time. And boy, oh boy, no greater words were spoken, because it was exactly that. But I'm just going to backtrack to a month prior, where Alex was getting thrown out of school. They said he doesn't fit anymore. He was aggressive and he was scripting. So Alex does have language, but it's not useful. So he was scripting, and he was scripting 2 things. And it was from Alvin and the Chipmunks. Just, okay, I know where it was coming from, but I didn't know why it was perpetual and habitual. And he said, What about me and what I need? And then he would say, why don't teachers understand?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So I said to my husband, I'm an intuitive. I said to my husband, he's trying to tell us something. He's trying to tell us something. And just to talk, very openly, a month prior to that, I had a dream that he was fully communicating with me. I woke up in the dream crying. I said to my husband, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Di, I don't know if I ever told you that story. Maybe I did.
I've had the same dream about Declan though. It's like, I know it. I woke up crying and it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Di, I didn't know that. I think this is really fun to share for me and you to have not known that. And we're sharing podcast. And so, and my husband was like, oh, what were you dreaming about your dad? My dad passed many years ago and I love him so much. And I'm like, no, dude, this is different. And I looked at him square and I said, and I know it's going to happen. And so then fast forward, I get the call, let's meet this boy. He's fully aware of his family, what they did not know, knowing what, his sister was doing, knowing what his brother, and meanwhile, he looked oblivious to their happenings. And that's autism, what I see is that they're contrarians, as we call them. It looks like they don't know, but they know. It looks like they're happy when they're sad. Certain things are mixed up. And, Doc can talk a lot about that and why they can't sort of, streamline their emotions. But yeah, so that began it. I went to this is great. This is a really good part of the story where it was April of 2016. He goes for his first RPM lesson with a therapist, Matthew. I was just jaw to the floor crying and sobbing the whole time, so that I can't really counter everything that happened that day. But at that point, remember, he was getting thrown out of school.
Right.
I sent him to school the next day. I did not say a word after that session to anyone in school. And we were very close to the teachers. You know how it is. When you have a child like ours, they're like, they're coming over for dinner. Okay. Yeah. So they called me by noon and they said to me, who did you send into school? Now, I am not kidding you. That is a fact that happened. And they said, he's beautiful today. He's happy. He's smiling. He's not aggressive. He's not hitting anyone. 24. I'm sorry, less, because his session was 2:30 the day before. Less than 24 hours later, he was a changed individual. And that was just, and then after that, the teachers came. We had a meeting. Nick came in from Staten Island and he did a presentation in front of the superintendent of schools. He was, by the end of the session, the man was sobbing, got up. We really got him at hello. And he said, whatever you want. And walked out. He couldn't compose himself. I'm not kidding you. So he couldn't compose himself. So I was like so happy he couldn't compose himself because I'm getting anything I want now.
When you've had to probably fight so hard to now
I didn't know it was so crazy because I think the less they knew about RPM, the more I was going to get. So because, a lot of times people just don't understand what's actually happening with how do these kids, how are they able to spell when they can't speak? They're, people are, are kind of, there's a lot of questions, Yeah,
and they're so deep rooted in the fact that these kids are not cognitively intact. So to be told otherwise or shown otherwise is like mind blowing. Like you can't even wrap your mind around that.
Right. And we, I always, in Doc's office, I always just say to parents, think about it. There's no output of voicing their opinions, saying anything. So what have they been doing? They have been listening. And with all of that, I literally feel as though their vocabulary is actually better than ours at the age they're at,
Right.
because
Oh,
listening. We've been told this over the years. Who is the person who learns the most? The one who listens.
right.
That doesn't take a genius. You know, that's a pretty straight up thing.
Right. And that's all that they've been able to do. Like for Declan, you know, that he's never said words, really words like that are eat maybe when
Right.
when he needs to, or things like that. But I mean, I just remember walking into your, like, Dr. Melillo just being like, all right, we got this new thing, RPM, like we're doing it. Declan's gonna go. And I remember it was our second intensive, and we just were still so new. And walking into your room, and Rumi was there, right?
Yeah, Rumi.
And
Yep.
she was taking the notes, and I was too. I want to make this clear. I was of the belief that his cognitive ability matched his verbal output. I own it. I was there. Now, had Dr. M had already told my husband and I, he's a genius. He's smarter than the three of us combined. Like, he had already told us that in April. And so I was starting to believe that. And I think more than anything, I was so desperately wanting to believe that. But again, that hope, I was afraid to give it hope. And I remember telling Dr. M that I love everything you're saying, and I pray to God you're real, but I'm afraid to give this anything. And then walking into you, I mean, Declan spelled dinosaur in after the second minute. And then the floodgates open. And I don't know if you remember, but he kept saying, and he caught us off guard. You weren't expecting, none of us were expecting him. He communicated, need help. Mm-hmm. And he must have spelled it out 6 times. And of course, the first time, me, you, and Romy all fell on the floor crying, hysterical, because we weren't prepared for it. And
to add to that, at the time, and I hadn't worked with this population. So the 4-year-olds, I've been training since I was doing this since 2017, right after Alex, when I got really, I said, wow, I'll be darned if I can't do this with my own child. So I was on it like flies on rice. And then I went to Texas. I went to Texas back in the day when you could go to Texas. Yeah. Now she does Zooms and she's doing all kinds of different things, Soma. But, so when I went to Texas, I had already been spelling with a couple of kids. Now, they weren't kids. They were in their 20s. A few years older than Alex. These were seasoned kids. And that's how I try to tell parents or people that are training, when you come out of training, try to get with a student who's already doing it. And then the next move you do is you train with somebody who's never done it, but regulated. Right. Then you can go to a third level where the person might not be regulated, but what we've learned in the older ages, because that's when people generally find RPM, that is a shame because it's late, even though they know a lot. Of course, because they've been listening, but to catch a child at a very young age. But it's more difficult because the parents still have major hope, as they should, never give up hope, that the child will speak.
Right.
And some people are in the notion that if you're spelling, you're not going to speak.
Yes.
That is an absolute fallacy.
Yes, agreed.
The desire to speak, or the need, because they all want it. Yeah. We know the kids want it. They say it all the time. Yeah. Mom, I really like to speak. I'd like to be verbal. How do I get my speech better? And Soma's been doing tremendous work with that. In fact, Alex will see her on Sunday. She'll be up here in New York, and he will see her for a half hour and more than likely not use a letterboard. Why? Because he's completely proficient on the letterboard. He can do anything. He can spell anything. He can come fluently, kind of like Declan's getting now, right? And so now Alex is very interested in upping the speech more as well. So we don't give up on speech, but the kids very young wouldn't be introduced to RPM. because the parents are still fighting for language.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, and
I
now,
get it. Yep.
but for you to have both at his age, I don't even know what to say. I'm like, that's amazing. To have both and to never give up on speech, because you guys have had, tell me about it, because I know that, if you don't mind me asking you,
Yeah, go.
I know he's been saying more words. What else has he been doing? Tell me about that just a little bit, because I think it's great to hear the RPM meets speech.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's been saying a couple words, but we have found like it's kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster with him. It's
Yes.
not been as consistent, which is why we've kind of pivoted and we're going to Speller's method. It is absolutely nothing against RPM, but there's a local person that we can work with. And you know, I wish you were moved to South Carolina, because I know Declan would already be fluently communicating openly. I know it. I have no doubts about that. But logistically, we just can't make it work. But
Yeah.
so, you know, I think what I would just say in the beginning, when he started really open communicating with me, you had him doing it immediately. Like he was telling you things, he was sharing open thoughts and ideas, which was just mind blowing, but he wouldn't do it for me necessarily. And I probably was inconsistent then myself, because it felt like, oh, I'm just not getting anywhere, you know? And then something clicked for him in like April, and all of a sudden he really started open communicating. But I think what I would say to parents is, and I wasn't probably prepared for this because I just hadn't really thought about it, but he started spelling, "I wish I wasn't autistic. I wish I could talk." And I mean, it's heartbreaking. And yet at the same time, you're so grateful that he's communicating, even though he's in distress, his feelings and emotions are in distress. He's communicating with me, and I know for the first time ever how he feels. You know, I wish I didn't have autism.
Yeah, the important thing is, you know, I work with so many kids, and I work with kids globally now. Global. You know, I think there was a Wednesday, there was not one person from the United States.
Right. Yeah.
It was incredible. So I just want to say that Soma's method and Spellers and the S2C people are also really following suit with teaching kids things, lessons, teaching them, because what happens is it opens up a learning channel when you are doing lessons, and it keeps them away from some of that pity party stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm autistic, I don't have this. Well, you know, I don't like to do this to them, but sometimes I'll say, wow, you know, I just saw a child that's in a wheelchair, and you know, and I talk to them very frank. I'll say,
yeah.
you know, let's figure out what we're going to learn today. And I believe that that is the answer toward open communication. So being a little bit, even if you're writing some things down, let's have topics, because they will have, and you'll hear that from the people that you're working with too, I'm sure, that they want content given, something that these kids just never had.
Right.
They were never taught. I remember saying to Alex when I left that first RPM session, I said to him, I will never make you count change again. I promise you. I will never. Like, I just went into the litany of things that I just would never make him or put in front of him again. And that really did stick, because we did bring in RPM into the high school. My son is now 25. But at the time, he was in a science class, biology. He was in, once we got it in the schools, once the school was trained, Jackie Dorhurst did the training. That's one of Selma's people. And then they allowed him to go in with his partner and take classes. And it changed everything, really, for him. We were a little late in the game in order to get real true credit. But we always talk about potentially doing the GED in case he wanted to go, you know, to college, and it's up to him. He says, no, Mom, I'm good, because he works at the office now. Did you know that?
No.
Oh yeah, working with Dr. Melillo and me on Wednesdays.
I love that.
every Wednesday. And it has been amazing. Some of the parents have like literally walk in on Friday when he's not there, and then they look right through me. Who is she? They're like, okay, well, she's the one helping us, but where's Alex?
Right.
So that's so great. And they're like, oh, I had a question for him. How beautiful
I know. That's
that
what we
in
all want.
meeting with him, he told a little girl yesterday, I don't think I got a chance to tell Doc. It's in the notes, but she was so beautiful and spelling at 6. And he said to her, time to wear your crown. You are smart and pretty. How about that? Time to wear your crown, he wrote. Now, honestly, I don't even know what to say. I'm so enamored with him and the way he comes up with statements that just in such a concise, quick way, fast, not a lot of words. I mean, it's
But
forward,
impactful.
impactful. And I know they do that. They do that for a reason. And the kids also, I work with not just kids. I call them kids because I'm an older gal and they're in their 20s. A lot of them. I have a lot of 30s. I have a 57-year-old man. So I don't call them, they're my kids. They're my kids because I'm older than all of them at least, right? And so, they're coming in with a little bit of a different slant on the way they structure a sentence. And I believe is to really prove that it is them speaking, because some people may question it. Wow, because we can't wrap our heads around when we watch the body and the lack of navigation of the body that we could possibly imagine the cognitive being
agreed.
Being fully intact.
Yes, and superior, superiorly intact.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to the listening. It really does, because the world has been their classroom. And, the navigation of literally, Alice would tell me, he said, Mom, I know you think I have supersonic hearing sometimes. He goes, but I am literally zoning in on certain different parts of the room. And you're not really realizing what I'm doing. Because I'd be like, I didn't even know you heard. He was doing a demonstration for me with a couple of parents, right? He's stimming over on the couch. Like, I can't even, I'm telling him to shush because I'm trying to talk to the parents, right?
Right.
Let's come on over, I said to him. I pick up the board. He goes, hello, Bob and Carol. Nice to meet you. I'm like, how does he even know their names? It didn't even look like he was listening.
Yeah.
But it was, he really was. And so I think that we can't neglect that the conciseness of some things that come out are the practicing they've done in their heads.
Right.
Was and output.
Right.
And the streamline of sentence becomes, just really fantastic. And Declan blew my mind. And I because of I'll never forget it. His feet didn't touch the floor. And he's like this. He would be ready to go, finger up. Yeah. And I would say to parents, I'd be like, what is he doing if he's not spelling? What is he doing? Banging on a letter? What is he doing?
Right.
And my son wouldn't sit for 45 minutes for anyone.
Right.
Now, he had to be doing something that was really supercharged and allowing him to be him. And all of the body language showed as well. It was the face changed, the body structure changed with Deck. He looked different.
Sat there.
He sat there like a soldier, which wouldn't be expected of a 4-year-old.
No, right.
And I think that, when Doc said, I go, only send in 8-year-olds and above. No, I'm not kidding. I said this. And he goes, well, then you can't work here. Sorry. Bye-bye. I went, oh, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're going to have to buckle up.
He knew.
And figure it out. And wow, that was probably just when I thought I was completely transformed, evidently, I was not transformed at that point. And because I had been working with so many kids, but again, at the time, the 20-year-old plus, and this, I don't want to say it this way, but it's the best way to say it. I was last resort for the parent. I was the last.
They were at the end. They just,
They had done it all. They
Yeah.
had tried all: speech therapy, acupuncture, stem cell. I can go on. And nothing wrong with stem cell, because I've been hearing some miraculous stuff there too. But I will tell you, the changes that might occur, and I think this happened to you, may not be exactly what we think. But all of a sudden now there's more regulation.
Yes.
May be able to spell better.
Yeah.
Whatever. But we try it all as a parent. I've tried it all. So to me, I still don't give up on speech.
Right.
And I think the combination and the feel that I have from Dr. Melillo's method and what I bring to the table there is a beautiful combination. And there are doctors there that are picking up the board, spelling with the kids, Jesse included. And there's, I'm bringing on some people now that are also doing the therapies that are RPM people. And we're excited because they talk to them with integrity, because everyone in that office was told, you have to sit in with Nancy. You have to see what Nancy is doing.
Yeah.
That changed the game, and so them coming in and seeing what they're capable of changed the way they spoke to the kids, even though they were already
agreed,
the kids of high level.
When you see it, you can't unsee it. There's no, you can't backtrack and be like, oh yeah, no, that wasn't Declan. Like you just can't. And Jesse and I would always say, because we always treat with him, I would always say, he'd always say, I want to sit on deck session. I'd always say, I want you to sit on deck session so that you can see what he does. And because I'd walk out of your session usually with Deck and go right into another session with Jesse for our last session of the day. And I mean, I was a hysterical mess. Like poor Jesse, and it got that, It's like, great.
Yeah.
But because the things that he was spelling were so mind-blowing. And you're right. I do feel like we did stem cells for him April 3rd. And I do feel like that was the catalyst that opened it up for him. He would, before, he was just so inconsistent. And then after that, it was really he was spelling a ton of stuff. He was spelling things that all open communication. I wasn't even sitting down doing lessons because he was like, I know everything. That's what he would spell to me. I know everything. He really likes world history, is what he told me.
Yeah.
So it's just, when we were with my sister and her family over the summer, my brother-in-law is a principal of a middle school. And he asked Declan such a great question, which I loved, but was, Deck, what's one thing you would tell me that how can I help my teachers? And Declan said, make them read Ito in Autism Land. I know. And my brother-in-law was like, okay, done. And, I posted about that book. I mean, that book has just been, if I could meet Ito, I would probably die of a heart attack. It really changed. There's few people in this short journey that we've been on, really, even though it feels like a lifetime, that have really changed our lives. Obviously Dr. M, you, reading Ito in Autism Land, I think watching the Spellers documentary for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
And I mean, those things just have changed it. I was talking to a girlfriend the other day who doesn't have a child on the spectrum, but has lived through this with me as one of my very, very close friends. And I was just saying, for the first time ever, I'm literally excited about Declan's future. I'm not afraid of it. Do I think that he will always maybe need a little bit of support? Will he be able to live independently? I don't know, maybe. But I'm not afraid, because I know how smart he is. I know he's going to do amazing things. And I don't even allow anyone, I don't care who it is, to entertain that he's not a genius. It's just, I went into an IEP meeting and, Tim, he's quiet and kind and gentle, but doesn't say two words. And he's sitting there and I'm like, I guarantee he's going to be valedictorian of his general education population. And whether anyone in this room agrees or not, doesn't matter to me. That's what he's going to be. And I was like, you know what? I'm just done like caring what other people think. And if they don't believe that Declan is who he is, who I know he is, there's the door, like exit. You're not needed on our team.
That's what's amazing. We have a school out here that has become a camp for Alex. He goes a couple of days a week. That's on the alternative days. So Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, he's with me all day. Friday's not really a free day, but he does do some activities. And they are creating a blog. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You know, I do blogs with my kids too, because I also run a program. And, you know, it really, it gives them the voice that with their peers, and then they feed off of each other in the blog, you know, talking about, so there is going to be more schools. And you got him at 6 years old here. 5? Is he 5 or 6? Oh my
He'll be 6 next month.
5. He's like a 20-year-old to me now. But he's going to have a lot more opportunities than Alex had during his school years. I try not to get myself upset about that. I refuse to, actually. I won't go backward. I only move forward. And as whoever's watching this, and I think there's going to be a lot of people watching, we'll have to get it out there. It is really super important to, you know, to really walk that journey. Just like you said, you're out. You don't believe this. You don't trust in my son's intellect. You're not even part of my existence. No. And I hope your audience, I'm going to tell your audience about this because, and you probably know or have seen, you know, Elizabeth Bonker.
Yes, I love her.
I mean, guys, watch that 6-minute video of her valedictorian speech at Rollins College. It is a reputable school. And she was able to take a communication partner with her throughout her journey of college. What would it be if we could do that for our neurodivergent non-speaker, right? So it's like, what would life look like? Well, let me tell you something. Silicon Valley is not stupid at all. These guys are working in Silicon Valley. Know that now. They are coming up with ideas that we can't even correlate or connect. So know that now. You know, think about it. You know, a lot of those guys are anyway, you know, our pocket protector guys, you know. They are the Asperger's, but now they're tapping into the low verbal, minimally verbal, because these kids have something extraordinary going on with their brains that they can calculate, come up with things that us, and as we see the world, do not see it the way they do. And that's just a whole nother conversation. But, you know, there's a place for them is what I'm really saying. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
I see him having a voice throughout, you know, TED Talks, writing books like Ito did, writing books like Tito's doing, Tito Soma's son. He's a poet. He's an extraordinary poet. So we have hope here. There's a lot of hope for our kids, and never give up. We wouldn't anyway.
No, and I do think that I care less about words. I always want the verbal ability to come for his own sake, right? It's easier to talk and communicate that way. That's easier. And it's more accepted in society. Like it's just easier. So I want that for him. But my definition of what a successful life for Declan is less contingent upon words and acquiring the verbal ability. It's acquiring an independent ability to communicate. And that's okay if it's spelling. Would I love to hear Mom through his sweet little voice? Of course I would. But I'm not, that's not the end all be all anymore. The end all be all is communication, independent communication from him. You know, we've had people before, you know, I mean, you know, that ignorant comments that you get, but someone very close to us one time said to me, you know, you were dealt a hard hand or something like that. And I remember it just thinking to me, like, even at the time, I don't even know if we had yet started treating with Dr. M, or maybe we had just started, but so I hadn't even really found this newfound hope and knowledge. Like, it's not even hope. Like, I know Declan,
Yeah.
who Declan is now, right? And I still remember even then thinking, like, that's a cruel comment. He's still my son. He is still a gift from God. And he is just as beautiful and deserves as much as my other two neurotypical children. So yes, I don't disagree that some things are harder when you have a neurodivergent children. Certain things are more difficult. And I think especially in the beginning, it does seem like everything's hitting you all at once and you're scared and you've got all these huge, really huge emotions that you don't know what to deal with or how to deal with them. But as you progress, I think, my God, this child is teaching me so much. What a gift that we were chosen to be his parents, that we were entrusted to be his parents. And if anyone feels differently, like, get out. Like, just don't even ever talk to me again because I'm not entertaining it.
Yeah, I believe truly that the people that are bestowed these children, that get that harbor them and love them and grow them, and are the people that are supposed to have them.
Yeah.
And and I've seen people that I was like questioning, is that the right parent for that kid? And I have had that thought, but yeah, they were and they are. And so it really depends. Dr. Melillo seeked me out through one of my students, and he was seeing my student Anthony, and I guess his mom had said, well, he's communicating, and he had an experience with RPM at the office, but he could not keep the person. They were from far away, and they could not be a regular person there. And so he said, I want to talk to Nancy. I want to talk to Nancy. And so then we had sat down, and it was like, let's go. When do we start? He was just, I never saw somebody with so feverish of a lack of fear about it. Like, just reckless abandon. Let's do this. Not reckless. I don't think it was reckless, but really saying we could do this. We can make this work. And he said, well, just
knowing
take
it
one day at a time. See if people are responding. And boy, oh boy, it's been an incredible journey. I'm almost,
you're hard to get in with.
I know. I have to say it's been like amazing. And because these kids are, I think they're just spectacular. I love this population, and I don't think I could do this if I didn't. I think it would really be it would be too much of a change in how I, but I always said, I was like, I'm such a talker. I'm like, wordy girl over here, right? And I was like, how could I have a child that doesn't speak?
Right.
Very young. I remember this. And then, boy, now he doesn't shut up. He's so much like me. I can't even tell you. It's hysterical. So the other day, this was not too long ago, he's like, Mom, he writes, I'm like Eminem. Wait, Eminem? Are you talking about the candy or the rapper? And isn't that funny? So he said, no, Mom, you know what I'm talking about, the rapper. I was like, you're nothing like him. I said, what do you mean? I mean, I kind of got insulted because meanwhile, it was an interesting thing for him to say. And he goes, no, Mom, think about it. He said he was not accepted. He had to fight for position. And he's wordy, just like me. Now, I was like, what a comparison, right?
I know.
A rapper, a boy who doesn't speak, and that's how he saw himself. I think it was more about the fact that he was a white guy in a black world, you know what I mean? Like this rapper who wanted position and was fighting for it. So he likened himself to that difference. And I was, again, blown away. Like, wow. And I've heard some of the other kids talk about, people that they admire or people that they feel like they are like. And it's just a stunning thing to have conversations with my son. My sister's always like saying, oh, my kid's not talking to me, or I'm like this or that, and he doesn't shut up, like ad nauseum. Like I have every possible thing that he wants to say to me, whether I like it or not. So kind of funny, the irony, the twist, in lives, such a
Well, and
twist.
I know. I feel like when Dex started open communicating with us, like my husband was getting all these beautiful things, like dad's my best friend. I love dad so much. Meanwhile, I'm like killing myself over like his therapy every day, like, and I would get, Mom, you need to eat more vegetables. Mom, you eat too much candy. I was like, Mom, stripes make you look fat. Like you shouldn't wear that dress. I was like, what? Okay. So, and when we were there in July at Dr. M's, Tim was with us for the first couple days, I think the first 2 days. And we were telling Jesse and Jackie about all the things. I was like, Tim gets all the great things. And I get like, Mom, you look chubby in stripes. We were just cracking up. And I was like, I'll still take it because he's communicating, even if that's how he feels about me. I will still take it.
I think it's really sweet because he is hitting Tim's side that Tim needs. Your son is smart enough to know Mom doesn't need to be told how great she is all the time. She knows it. Sometimes our fathers, it's like, they have I don't want to label Tim. I don't know Tim well enough, but it's such a hard hit for men with their boys when they do not have what other guys have with their kids. You have other boys, so it's different. Okay.
Right.
He's got the soccer experience and but men come in a certain way and it's not their fault. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not blaming anybody. And so I think Declan doesn't think you need the pump up.
Right.
And maybe he thinks Tim does. And maybe Tim does, or maybe he doesn't. But that's how Declan wants to really bond with him because he's already got you. Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah.
I know.
I love that perspective. I love it.
I think it is. Because I think it's also so funny because you're the one spelling with him. I don't think we would, if anybody wanted to believe it, they would certainly believe it. Just tell me I look fat. It's like, well, I wouldn't say that about myself. So, I guess it's really Declan. But that's what's interesting. And my son, because I know that, sometimes our little ones need support.
Yeah.
The arm or which is really not something that RPM I ever had to do because I was always dealing with older kids. And Alex does not need to be touched in any fashion. Board is never moved. And that is what true RPM is.
Right.
And so, and we are, and the S2C, the spellers, everybody feels the same way. So as he graduates, he will get, all of that will be part of the fabric. You'll see. So, even a touch of a shoulder is not really what we want. So it's just, that's the continuation of how beautiful it does get. Like you said, you can't unsee it. With Alex, it's within seconds in the office, people are crying watching him.
Oh, I've had the privilege of meeting him. He's amazing.
You see the profound, difficulties he has. He's fairly, I don't want to say obvious, but obvious is just a lack of a better term. He's obvious in the sense that that there is something that is not quite the same as a typical kid. So, when you see the regulation and all of a sudden he just kind of props up and starts spelling with a very definitive, he's very much looking at the board. He's very much, I always tell parents, watch the eyes. The eyes get there before the hand.
Right.
And a lot of the parents are watching as I'm doing it. And they're like, wow, his eyes are right there on the letter I. They're right there on the letter E. Like they are so excited about that because I couldn't make that happen.
No, exactly.
Exactly. And look, I like to say that we have people around us that can be naysayers because of the extraordinary abilities they have. It's almost like 0 to 60. So people can't understand that gap from where they were to where they are now. It's our job, my friend, to tell them and show them, because everything will change. The pattern of life, because guess what? It's 1 in 36.
Yeah. And it's
One,
only going to get worse. It's only going to
it
get more
is, it is a
staggering.
fact. It is a fact. Everybody's touched by it now. There's nobody that you haven't seen. No fast pass in Disney anymore. You know,
Well,
I went to Disney, when Alex was 4, and he's 25. So there was a lot less of him at Disney.
mhm,
We're talking about now, forget, it's a
right.
whole other world.
Yeah.
And of course, this is not something that I wish upon anyone. It is just the statistics.
Right.
And
Right.
so I was always the kind of person, as I was growing up, who kind of hung out with the people that had issues. I was one of those people. And I would always be like, oh no, that person is totally cool. You just don't know them yet. And so
I love that.
I think that, our good Lord is going, okay, she can handle it. She knows the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. I
It's,
think it's that mind shift though, to feel and believe. It's less not to know that this is a gift. He's a gift. I mean, I've always known all my children are gifts, but like he is teaching us things and taking Tim and I mean, I think back to when Tim and I met at 22 years old, and we're now here we are, and we are on this path of special needs parents that you just never saw yourself on. And to think even just in the 3 years of how it's come full circle, but that's because people have come into our lives at the right time. And I'm a huge believer in those things. So like,
right. Me too. I mean, give yourself credit, because not just to happen to find, Dr. Melillo, and therefore me, it was more like I worked really hard. I researched my what off, and I was the one who found him. You're the one. And so give yourself credit for that, because it's not a happenstance. It's everything that happens to you is divinely put there. Whether you were clicking on something and all of a
right.
sudden, the Melillo method came up and you were like, wow, I think I'm going to try that. And you may have heard it from somebody. I don't even think I know your story about that.
I
But
found it on a podcast. I was
yeah,
like, and actually it's Autism Parenting Secrets. I can't, the guy's name is Len, I think. It's a husband and wife that started. They treated Dr. M's now with their son. And they've got this awesome podcast that I just found. I found several resources on there. I mean, I always like promote, it's just amazing. And because they're parents, I think we were talking about earlier, the Spellers documentary, like that JB Hanley says in there, like autism parents trust other autism parents. And so that's also 100% true. I mean, right? Like if another autism parent tells me something worked for their child, okay, well, I'm all over it. And like even you being here, you're not just an RPM teacher, trainer, specialist, you live it with your child. So who better to talk about it? And I've said that to Dr. M before, is like, you need the moms. Like no one is going to share this like the moms will. We are a feisty bunch. Like we're dedicated. No one's derailing us, and I'm actually, there's a WhatsApp group for the moms where there's treatment, that have had treatment at the clinic, and dads can be in there too, but it's mostly moms. And I mean, that's the stuff we're talking. We're always posting new things. Have you tried this? Have you heard of this? Have you done this? Like, and it's awesome. Like, it's like nowhere else, because I've always felt like, even on this journey, I've always felt like I've been an anomaly. Like I didn't fit with like the general special needs moms, because I was always like, I'm ready to talk about it. And like, they just didn't want to talk about it all the time. And then, you kind of don't fit with the neurotypical moms, because sometimes it is really hard, even though I have neurotypical kids of my own. Sometimes it's hard when you see another kid who's the same age as Declan, like just even having a conversation with their parent. Like I remember being at the eye doctor with him, or the ear doctor, and a dad was across from us with his little one. And the kid just said to the dad, like, I don't know, like, I love you, dad ears. And I like burst into tears. I mean, like, what a nut job, right? But like, those are like all the emotional things that you have to figure out how to deal with. And I think those are as you're dealing with the fear and the like all those things, it's just so
Yeah.
much, which is why I do the podcast is like I was there, I'm there some days still, like it's a journey.
Yeah, you know, you're not expected to have I had, interestingly enough, so Alex has had this since he's 16. And so we had this miraculous stuff happen at school, incredible changes. And then at post Alex, his last year of high school, which he was 21, he stayed in school with a communication partner for that period. And what ended up really, you know, in the recent, he's scripting another line, and I wanted to communicate this to you. He's scripting another line that is very, very new, and he's been a little bit more edgy. So remember, this is an autism journey, right? And for them specifically, so he's been saying, the world is passing me by. And it's been, it made me sad. And I sat with him and I talked about it. He goes, Mom, I just need more. And it was when we started to work at the doctor's office. And, you know, they gave him a Melillo shirt. He was very excited, right? So, in fact, Tuesday night, my husband said to him, so, will you want to come with me tomorrow? I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. Or do you want to go to the office? The office. That's what he said. The office. And I can honestly say, put our children in front of things that you would not believe they are listening, hearing, understanding, connecting. They are. And yeah, so that was, I know he's still feeling some of those feelings because he's 25 years old. He doesn't have agency over his body. And he knows he can't drive. He's too impulsive. He's too, you know, what the limitations are in the physical, you know, because what we've learned about RPM is that it's hard to get it from here to here, but we can get it from here to the motor. It becomes a motor ability. So, you know, to dig deeper into that, we can do something on another day. Well, you know, I think we could have like a series, just you and I.
I love it.
You know, so, but there's lots of reasons why it works. Doc would explain that better than I. I'm just the mom. And I've appealed, what you just said earlier was really important too. In the office, these young children are coming in. This is their baby, a parent's everything. And they're looking at me like, who are you to change like what I am, what they are freaking out. Yeah. And so I immediately become Alex's mom. When I become Alex's mom, I see them melt and soften and say, you experience this too. Yeah, you think I would dupe any of you? You think that, who am I if you were to not believe that your child is brilliant? I have to prove that to you before you walk out of my office, and I will make sure you know, because I love them so much. They become like my children in there. They're the only person in the room. And that's my gift. I really care. I really do. That to me is the gift that I have. I actually really fully incorporate the deepest of emotion to it. It's not vicarious. I'm living it.
You're living it.
Living it. And
which instantly gives you credibility with the moms.
Well, yeah, it helps. And in the early times of RPM, I was the only therapist that I knew other than Soma who had a child with autism. So all of the higher levels of RPM were practitioners, SLPs. They were, you know, they have great credentials and they're wonderful therapists, but they didn't have a kid. And so I felt like it was a little bit of a one-upsman because of the of some of the fears that might be incorporated by something like this, not somebody just not understanding it.
Yeah.
And yeah, being able to give them a slice of what I lived. And, you know,
100%.
it just worked out. You know, it worked out, and it's taking over my world, which is expected. You know, you land where you're supposed to be, always,
Always.
always, you know?
Well, and I feel like this is a great place to pause because I don't want the episode to be too long, and you and I can go on forever. But
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
pause here and then we'll pick it back up because I just feel like there's so much to share and there's so much hope to give. And I want other parents to not be in that place where I was like, I'm afraid to have hope. So,
You
thank
know,
you so
also,
much.
you know, because my schedule is so crazy and you live in another state and all of that, but I would love to be a resource. So if somebody wants, you know, give them my email. I don't care. You
Okay.
know, it just feels like that's really what I'm doing now. I'm just trying to help parents assess their children, get them on the right path, and just know that you got. I call them X-Men. I call my kids X-Men because they're just, it's like a superpower, you know, and I just love being around them because they energize me. And they're just of a higher frequency. I want to end with that. They just,
Truly. I mean, that is so true. All right. Well, you know, I love you and I thank you for your time today. You are amazing. You are such a
I
gift
love,
to my family and me and Declan.
and
Um,
Declan to me, he's probably, I have a few pictures of students from the office and he is one of them. Yeah. And so I'm blessed to have him. I really am.
well, thank you. We will pick this back up and we'll have part 2 in a couple weeks.
Love it.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Good night. Take care, guys.